Well, that is a story I've told a number of times, but when I was in Hebrew school, Israel's connections to apartheid South Africa were becoming very clear, and there was both a civil rights movement in this country, which attracted a lot of Jewish people like myself, and then there was the struggle against apartheid in South Africa. So it was a big shock to me to learn that Israel was behind arming the apartheid regime, and I had this is the punchline. I had this argument with a rabbi, and he kind of confided in me. He said, you know, South Africa classifies people either black, colored, or white, and yeah, they had like 3 categories. You know, blacks had no rights, coloreds were like Indians and mixed race people. They had some rights, and then whites had all the rights. So what he told us was that if Israel didn't support South Africa, then South Africa would reclassify Jewish people as colored. And I just found that a completely unacceptable moral. I mean, and from a rabbi, which does more to me then than it does now, it's still
I guess you're here today to
yeah, and the lessons that people should draw from it and to engage. Are you here to see the show? You know, I was extremely disappointed with the production management. Last night we got a very hostile response from a minority, but very hostile, throwing stuff at us, threatening us, and they were welcomed right into the show. And when I tried to buy a ticket, I was asked, "Are you going to be disruptive?" And I said, "You know, we were standing out here making this statement in unity with the spirit of examining the lessons of the Holocaust."
This establishment denied you a ticket to see
Yes, yes. Huh. And, you know, and had no issues with the people who were throwing stuff at us and threatening us. So that I was rather disappointed. In the sense that after the Holocaust, after World War II, the European powers came to the Zionists and said, okay, we're going to ease up on the pogroms, the scapegoating for now, and you can have a country. In fact, somebody else will share that it's yours now, and you can go up to nuclear arsenal, but you will be a power enforcement in the Middle East. And, you know, originally the French and British set this up, and then later the United States set it up.
I don't think that you have documentation that they said you can work as country, our enforcers. What documentation?
The correspondence between the founders of the State of Israel, people like Theodore Herzl and people like Lord Balfour, who was British Foreign Secretary, if I remember right. Oh, I think that one, yeah. We're more or less in those words. You can find letters from Theodore Herzl saying, we will be your outpost in, you know, I'm sorry, I haven't memorized them, but I'm paraphrasing pretty closely. We will be your outpost in the uncivilized Middle East. And actually, there's one letter from Herzl that says, as a colonial power, you should understand what we're trying to do here.
When are you leaving for Lithuania?
What?
Yeah, well, why shouldn't you go back to Lithuania? What do you need to do there for?
You want me to go back to Lithuania?
Yeah, well, oh my God, somebody wants you to do something. You have all the answers to the world. You know you're telling the world what has happened. But the worst thing that's happened to America is that you're
It's not
here.
so funny.
I think it is funny.
Yeah, well, I don't think it is.
Well, I think it is. Yeah.
The worst thing that happened to
You know
America.
what? Listen, you know, I disagree with them too, but just keep it civilized.
Oh, in my day, in my
You're the one who's,
should be
you're the one who's
civilized
making
society.
physical threats while we're trying to have a rational engagement. It seems like you are. Maybe I'm misinterpreting.
Oh, you're wonderful. You're a wonderful, beautiful man with a belly and an ugly nose. You're just marvelous. You're fantastic. But just go back to Lithuania.
Those of us who disagree with you, most of us are a lot more articulate than Rose.
Oh.
So, a lot of what Israel does is very wonderful, etc.
And then
The general
You're building for
protest
them?
against Israel worldwide this week, over the years, how much of that, in all honesty, do you think has to do with legitimate criticism of Israeli policy, and how much of that do you think is motivated by anti-Semitism? People are not going to come out and say, I hate Jews, but do use the state of Israel as an outlet for anti-Semitism, the same kind of anti-Semitism that has existed for centuries before Israel ever existed. Do you acknowledge that there are a somewhat sizable percentage of people who fit that description?
Well, that's a complex and important question. So I quick shouting thing, but that's not what you're asking for. First of all, I think we do have to look at the actual role of this. In other words, the motives, we can't judge whether or not this is true or not by whether or not Ahmadinejad is a Holocaust denier. He is. I don't have anything to do with him. And in a certain sense, it's irrelevant to the truth of this. We have to look at the actual role that Israel has played around the world in South Africa, in Guatemala. And if, in fact, it has done the things that we're saying that it has done, then that has to be spoken to.